Great, thank you all for being here. Let's call the Public Works and Public Utilities meeting for Tuesday, September 29th, 2020 to order. Could we have a roll call, please, Ms. Pisola?
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
Here.
Councilor Romana Beta,
Here.
Councilor Joanne Vigil Koppler,
Here.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Present.
Councilor Signe Lindell.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Pisola. Next, approval of the agenda. Any changes from staff? Ms. Wheeler or Mr. Jones?
There's no changes from Public Utilities, Mr. Chair.
Is Ms. Wheeler on yet?
She is on.
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of any changes.
Okay, what are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion for approval by Councilor Garcia, a second by Councilwoman Vigil Koppler. Any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Pisola?
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Romana Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Joanne Vigil Koppler,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Signe Lindell,
Yes.
and motion passes.
Thank you. Approval of the consent agenda. Any changes from staff? Mr. Jones?
There are no changes, Chair. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Wheeler or Ms. Pisola?
Changes from staff, Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. All right, anything the committee members would like to pull off? I heard from Councilwoman Vigil Koppler, who is pulling off item B. Is there anything else, Councilor Vigil Koppler?
No, sir.
All right, anything, Councilor Lindell?
Item D and G. D is in dog, G is in George.
D and G. All right, Councilor Garcia, anything?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Councilor Beta?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, so we have items pulled, item B as in boy, D as in dog, and G as in George. What are the wishes of Council Lindell?
Chair, I might have told you the wrong. I did. No, I didn't. D and G. Thank you.
D and G. Okay, what are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve is amended by Councilor Lindell, a second by Councilwoman Vigil Koppler. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Pisola?
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Romana Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Joanne Vigil Koppler,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Signe Lindell.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Next, approval of the minutes, minutes from September 8th, 2020. Any changes from staff? Mr. Jones?
I have no changes, Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Wheeler?
Changes, Chairman.
All right. Anything from the committee? What are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
Move to second.
A motion for approval by Councilwoman Vigil Koppler, second by Councilor Garcia. Any further discussion? See none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Roman Abeta,
Yes.
Councilor Joanne Vigil Koppler,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Signe Lindell,
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Next, on to public comment. Was there anything submitted to you, Ms. Pasola?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Ray Diaz, anything submitted to you? You're a little broken up, Ms. Ray Diaz. I didn't quite understand you. Okay, I think she said no comment. Is that right?
No.
All right. Okay, let's move on. Presentation and informational items. Item A, and presenting will be Jesse Roach.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for your time. I wanted to briefly bring you up to speed on some work that City of Santa Fe Water is doing on long-range planning. Council passed resolution 2019-56 directing Water Division to develop 40 and 80-year long-term water resource management plans. In recognition of the fact that our water future is combined with the county, we have agreed to include the county in this planning effort. And we're proceeding with a combined effort with the county, but with sort of parallel plan development. So we are not going to sort of hold our progress to work done by the county. We will continue to move forward and do this planning collaboratively where it makes sense, but also understanding that we have our own objectives and outcomes that we are pushing forward for. The planning approach that we are proposing is that in this first year, which is essentially this year, 2020, we'll put out a sort of process that we plan to move forward with. It's currently a 5-year process that we're putting forth that will include next year scenario development, which would be water supply scenarios and water demand scenarios. From those scenarios, we would look at whether there's a gap between supply and demand in what situations there might be a gap in what years, and develop preferred projects or initiatives, or maybe another way to think about them are adaptation strategies. How are we going to close the gap between supply and demand going out into the future? And then work to put that together into our long-range water resource plans. The objective for this year, as I mentioned, is to sort of finalize this approach. We're going out for sort of comment to the public now. And for those of you who receive your utility bills physically in sort of paper form and envelopes, you may have started to see some utility bill inserts. I've included a copy of those in the agenda packet, or in the meeting packet for those who are interested. It includes a 1-pager sort of giving a background to this planning process. And it also included a postcard, an addressed stamped postcard with a couple of questions on it to try and solicit information on values associated with water in the community amongst our customers. And then the second piece of this sort of public outreach will start this week with some email outreach, trying to raise awareness of this effort and steer folks towards a larger online survey with a larger number of questions, and sort of call out 2 webinars that we have planned on October 19th and 20th, where we're going to sort of lay out our plan for this 5-year planning cycle. And then following those webinars, 3 different, again, it'll be Zoom meetings, but rather than webinars, it'll be sort of an opportunity for smaller breakout groups to allow folks to provide feedback in smaller groups to this proposed planning effort. So this was mostly just an opportunity for me to bring the committee up to speed on how this is going, in case you get questions about utility bill inserts or emails that we're going to start to push out, and also to make you all aware that we're pursuing this jointly with the county, and it's one of a couple different efforts that we have going jointly with the county at this time. So with that, I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Any questions for Mr. Roach?
I see Councilor Vihil Coppler.
All right, I can't see her. So Councilwoman Vihil Coppler, you have a couple questions?
Thank you. Jesse, I just wanted a little more finite answer on the utility bills and when this survey went out, because I just got mine and I'm afraid I may have put it in recycling. So it probably messed up.
Okay, it went out in the last two cycles of, let's see. So there are 4 cycles in each month, and they started going out middle of September. And so they'll go in the last 2 cycles of September and the first 2 cycles of October. So I believe 3 of the 4 cycles, 2 of the 4 cycles have now gone out, or it may have, I apologize. It's either 3 of 4 have already gone and there's 1 left, or 2 of 4 have gone and there's 2 left.
Well, okay. I'll pay more attention. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Roach? Jesse, I had a question. So in the sample that you put out, it says to mail separately, don't include with your bill. Are we sending a self-addressed envelope with that, or are they being asked to provide that themselves?
So that is 2 sides of a postcard-sized card, and those postcard-sized cards went in the mailer with postage already on them. The problem is if those get included in the envelope with the billing, then we actually get charged more. So this is a bit of an experiment. We're hoping that folks are willing to fill out a couple of answers and just put it in the mail, since it's already been, the postage has been paid, but we'll see how this works.
All right. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Roach. Next, we're on item B, which is also Mr. Roach, the City of Santa Fe Water Annual Report for calendar year 2019.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you. I just wanted to briefly make you aware that our 2019 annual report has been completed and is available in the packet. It will soon be available also through our website. And I just wanted to point out a couple of the highlights. It's not very long and it reads pretty well, but I do understand that not everybody is as crazy about water as maybe I am, and you might not want to read the whole thing. And so just a couple of highlights. 2019 was a very wet year for us. We got 25% more rain at a gauge in the upper watershed than is normal. Our Canyon Road facility diverted our full right for the first time in many years. And as a result, 93% of our city use during 2019 came from surface water, which we think of as our checking account. We can see exactly how much we have. We know ahead of time, more or less, what we might expect to come in. So we like to be majority served by surface water. So it was a good year from that perspective. Our deliveries to the Santa Fe River through the Living River program were greater than the full 1,000 acre feet that was allocated based on the fact that it was a wet year. And then I wanted to draw your attention to figure 4 of the report, and that's on page 9. of 22 of the report, or page 28 of 307 of the packet. And that chart shows a calculation of something that we call GPCD, which stands for gallons per capita per day through time. And that chart goes from 1995 through 2019, and it shows the both the population, the population served is the blue bars, and we see that from 1995, when the water division was acquired from PNM, the population served was about in the high, maybe 68,000, somewhere in there. And in the past 25 years, that has grown to over 80,000. But at the same time, the gallons per capita per day, the average use per person, has dropped from 168 in 1995 all the way to 87 last year in 2019. That's the lowest GPCD that we've ever recorded. And interestingly, it's almost half of what the GPCD was in 1995. So this is a big accomplishment. I have been told by my staff that I need to point out that it was a wet, cool spring. And so this 87 did have quite a bit to do with the fact that it was a wet spring and a cool spring. And so we may not stay at 87, but the trend, we continue to trend down. And this is a remarkable accomplishment that I thought was worth bringing to the attention of the committee. Other than that, I'll leave the sort of other details of the report for those who are interested, and I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Councilwoman Vihel Coppler.
thank you. Jesse, I don't ordinarily delve into reports like this, but I just wanted to say that I think it was exceptionally well written. And the thing that made me read it was that it was in layman's terms, very understandable. And just wanted to compliment you and whoever else helped in preparing the report, because I felt like it was just really easy to read, and I learned a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't know. So thank you.
Councilwoman Vihel Coppler, thank you for that. I also agree with you, and it was not me who wrote it. It was mostly Andrew Erdman, and I also found it incredibly accessible and readable, and so I very much appreciate that comment.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Next, we're on the consent agenda, item B, consideration of a resolution adopting the 2022 through 2026 senior ICIP plan. Councilwoman Vihel Coppler, you pull this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go to the chart of the project summary where it has the list of all the projects and the order that they're in. And so my question is about the roof, which is number 10, which, that's the only project we previously had received funds for. And now it's last. And so, while I don't disagree with any of the other projects that are ahead of it, and maybe this is a moot point anyway, but I need to ask it. And I really think that unless something's changed, roofs are really important. If you don't have a solid roof and it's leaking or about to fall down, who knows, you really can't do any of the other things under that roof that make you safe. It's a health, safety, and welfare kind of thing. So I'm not sure if this is no longer, well, obviously it's no longer a priority, or maybe this is just the way the chart ends up. Sometimes I know how that works. But I'm curious as to why the roof isn't a priority or higher up, or at least even number one anymore.
Mr. Chairman, Councilor Vihil Coppler, this is Gino. Good afternoon. The roof is still a priority. It's just that if you can see on the item where we see the 1.9 million on the MEG remodeling, that's a GeoBond submission that was done in April of last year. It was approved by the legislature to go to the voters, which is in November. And it has to be approved by the voters. So we put the other roof replacement sort of as a placeholder in the event this GeoBond doesn't pass. Then we wouldn't have the money, and we would, it would clearly become a critical item. But that's sort of the balancing act we do on these GeoBonds and severance tax submissions. So that's the main thing. And with the state, it's not necessarily the same as it is with the city's ICIP submission. For them, they just want us to have it on the ICIP for us to be able to submit a request in the application. So the answer is the roof is important. Hopefully it passes the GeoBond in November, and then that will probably be removed next year when we submit, just because we would have enough revenues on the GeoBond. Does that make any sense? I can kind of see your.
Well, then I guess my question is, how long do you think that roof's going to last? And maybe it's not even an issue. I mean, is it? Or tell me about that roof.
Well, last year we had a sizable GeoBond appropriation that we had to do some renovation here at the MEG on multiple things. And one of the things we did was we had, in coordination with Public Works, we brought in a structural person to evaluate our roof and make some decisions about what needed to be done in the event of a temporary work. So they identified a plan, and we hired a company that came in, and they did patchwork, reconditioning and whatnot to the roof. And so we feel that the roof is in okay shape until we can get the larger pool of money. And the intent is to try to replace the entire roof so that you don't have all this hodgepodge of holes in different age grouping of roofing that has been done over the years. So I'm trying to do it all at the one time. So that was the rationale behind all of this.
So thank you for that. Did you spend that $36,500 on the contractor that did the review of the roof?
Mr. Chairman, Councilor Vihil, the funding was spent on the roof.
Right.
We had a contractor come in and did the repair work that was identified by the structural person, the engineer.
Okay, thank you. That was my question. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? All right, what are the wishes of the committee?
To approve.
Second.
Motion for approval by Councilwoman Vihil Coppler, second by Councilor Beta. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please.
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Roman Abeyta,
Yes.
Councilor Joanne Vihil Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Signe Lindell,
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Pisula. And also, when this was introduced at council, I wanted to sign on as a co-sponsor. So Gino or Ms. Pisula, if you can make sure that happens as this move forward, that'll be great.
Mr. Chairman, that'll happen. I'll get a hold of Jesse.
Great, thank you. Next, we're on to item D, request for approval of police vehicle purchase request. Total amount is $539,662 for vehicles, equipment, labor, and costs associated with each vehicle. Councilwoman Lindell, you pull this, and Deputy Chief Valdez is here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair. On page 3 of 54 in our packet, near the bottom of the page are the funding source. Do we typically fund our vehicles out of the law enforcement fund?
Mr. Chair, Councilor Lindell, out of which law enforcement fund? The Law Enforcement Protection Fund?
It says Law Enforcement Fund 223.
Councilor Lindell, under our budget, that is where we have the funding set up for the building of the vehicles. Based on the equipment that we get for it and the outfit, they come from different sources of funds that we have within our budget. Some funds pay for the purchase of the vehicle. Others may pay for the data processing and for the outfit of the vehicles.
Okay, what I'm trying to ask is do we typically buy our police vehicles from the Law Enforcement Fund?
I believe we do, Councilor. I can check with my budget staff to see if we've done it in years past, and I can follow up with you on that later.
Okay. Because I'm trying to find a breakdown of what the real funding is for these vehicles. I pretty much get the animal services one, but as far as the police, I don't know what you call them anymore, vehicles, cruisers, hybrid SUVs, it looks like that fund, I'd like to know the amount of fund. I'm not sure why on the bottom of that page, the same fund is listed twice. And additionally, the general fund is also listed. So what I'd like to know is how much money is coming from each fund, and if it is typical that we take funding from the Law Enforcement Fund 223 to buy police vehicles. Because it seems to me like we didn't set money aside in the budget, and believe me, I could be wrong, but it didn't seem to me like we had set money aside from the general fund for police vehicles. So if you could check that prior to it going to finance, that would be helpful.
Mr. Chair, Councilor Lindell, this is Anna Marie. I could probably answer that for you.
Terrific.
The law enforcement is just the name of the fund account that is listed in the chart of accounts for budget. It is out of the Police Administration Fund. And usually we have budget in the general fund under vehicles and the police admin fund under vehicles. This year during budget, there was nothing in the general fund for vehicles. There was $270,000 budgeted in the Police Administration Fund. The general fund that you're looking at the bottom of there under Police Administration for data processing is only for the $38,152 listed on page 1. And that is just for the tablets, the notebooks.
Okay.
For the animal services vehicle, that is the 30, I believe it's 31,000 that will come out of the animal services fund. And the remainder is out of the police administration fund. One for the vehicles in the amount of 259,763. And the munis object name number is the vehicles, that's at the bottom there. And the equipment comes out of the inventory exempt.
Okay, so what I'd like to know is, what I'm coming up with is, we don't typically pay for police vehicles from the police admin fund. Is that correct?
Yes, we do.
We do. That's where we typically buy our vehicles from, not from the general fund.
Mr. Chair, Councilor Lindell, in the past, the majority has come out of the general fund, and then there's been a portion out of the police administration fund.
Okay, do you have any idea what that amount typically is out of the police administration fund?
Mr. Chair, Councilor Lindell, last year, it was 457,960 for vehicles.
469, you said?
457,960.
Okay, thanks.
That was out of just the police admin fund.
And then the rest of it came out of general fund, correct?
Yes, it did.
Okay, all right. So let's go back to, I appreciate that.
You're
Let's go back to the same questions that I ask every year. And that is the amount of equipment that we put in every car, of the cars that we retire. What do we do with all the equipment that's in those cars?
Mr. Chair, Councilor Lindell, most of the vehicles that we have in the fleet, if it's a patrol vehicle, we are looking at replacing that equipment at about 5 years. The reason being is because the operating hours that goes into the vehicle, and as of late, within the last 10 to 12 years, the technology advancements that occur within the vehicle that need to be updated. For example, we did the major upgrading of our radio system and our dispatch system and our report writing system, and that's requiring additional bandwidth capacity on our modems. So a lot of our modems are in need of replacement. Right now, we're trying to do what we can to maintain that capacity. Much of our older fleet was not provided with those modems, so they are deemed obsolete. There's no way for us to retrofit them. And in addition, those vehicles are well over 7 years old, so it would be of no value for us to upgrade them. If a vehicle is taken out of the fleet and it does have serviceable equipment that can be retrofitted to another vehicle, either as spare parts, those are things that we do try to utilize. But if it's something like a computer, a printer, or other items that are inside of a vehicle, whether the vehicle is operating or if it's sitting, it's being exposed to extreme heat, cold. You have vibration from driving around throughout the normal course of business. So some things can be utilized and continue on as a spare part. But when we build a vehicle, it's more cost effective for us to put new equipment so we get that full service life out of that. In some cases, some equipment, although we do try to replace it 5 years, it may stay on in our fleet for anywhere from 7 to 8 years. In other cases, much if it's a larger vehicle like a truck, those may stay in our fleet 7 to 9 years. So it just kind of depends on what the situation is with the vehicle, the condition of it, what it's been exposed to. Is it a patrol vehicle versus an admin vehicle? Based on its assignment will kind of dictate how much wear and tear that vehicle and the associated equipment goes through.
That's fine, thank you. So what happens to the equipment that we don't put into other cars? Where does that go? Do we just throw it in the garbage? How do we dispose of that? And Where does, because I suspect there's a fair amount of it. Where does that get either disposed of, stockpiled, or is it sold?
It could be a number of those three things. Some vehicles, if they do have suitability to be utilized by another city department, we do offer those up to other city departments to make use of them. Some of our pickup trucks we gave to parks. If it does have a radio or other equipment and they can make use of it, it'll remain with that vehicle for the course of that life. If it is something that is not able to go into another vehicle and it is still operational, those items go off to auction, and what they may do is a bulk sale of them. So if you have a number of computer stands, we may pay a couple $100 or $1,000 for that stand and associated equipment. But if they do a bulk sale, there may be 10 stands and associated equipment that may go for a couple $100. But that is disposed of through the auction process.
Okay, and this isn't a question. It's a comment that I wish that we would go away from the black vehicles. I think that in this day and age of policing, that there's a lot of national conversation, and I think those vehicles look very aggressive. And I think that going back to a black and white vehicle would be a very good idea. I think that certainly the black vehicles are hotter, and I think there's some other practical and community-minded reasons to go back to black and white vehicles. So that's a comment that I make every time we buy vehicles. I know it's not a popular comment, but there's plenty of data to back up that kind of reasoning. And I think in this day and age, it's something that we really should consider. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Councilor Vihel Coppler.
Thank you. I have a question perhaps for Anna Marie. So in your explanation about the law enforcement categories or fund names, I understand the general fund, but I guess the special revenue, both on police administration, does that revenue come from ticketing, or where does that revenue come from?
Mr. Chair, Councilor Vihel Coppler, I am not sure on that. I can check with budget and get back to you on that.
Okay, I was just wondering, because it's always good to know where your money comes from, but I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chair.
Anything else from committee members? Councilor Lindell brought up a great point in DC Valdez. I'm just curious as to what color vehicle you guys are looking at.
Mr. Chair, our current fleet is an all-black vehicle with gold and multicolored decals that we have on the vehicles. With this order, we'd be mostly transitioned to have a uniform fleet. We have designated white and colored vehicles with decals to be utilized by our non-sworn personnel, such as public safety aides, patrol safety aides, animal services officers. This fleet will be a black and colored vehicle. The vehicles we are requesting to get are going to be patrol vehicles with decals applied to them, with the exception of the one animal services truck, which will be white in color with the applied decals. We did try the white in color doors and roof. With those decals, they were a vinyl application. And with the heat here in New Mexico, we tried it out and they were getting damaged, and we had to retrofit those decals. And that is the reason why they went to a solid color vehicle instead of having those vinyl applications for the roof and the doors. If we were to look at painting the doors and going back, it may require additional costs to retrofit all of our old vehicles to strip the decals. We'd have to probably look at getting them painted in order to make sure that our fleet is uniform, so they can identify that vehicle as one of ours.
Councilor Lindell.
Well, when we started transitioning to black, we didn't go ahead and change all the black and white vehicles to black so that we would have consistency within our fleet, did we?
Mr. Chair, Council Lindell, no, we didn't. We knew that the
So
black,
that's all I need.
we
It's
knew the
just
black and
a
white
matter.
decals were gonna be worn out and would be in need of replacement. And once we remove those white vinyl decals off of the door, at that point, we would replace them with decals, so we don't have to spend twice.
Council Lindell, you still have the floor.
I was only trying to make the point that when we did this previously, we didn't change out all the other vehicles so that we had consistency. It's taken a number of years for us to get to this all black fleet. And I just don't think that it projects a community-friendly attitude with these all black cars. So that's all I have to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chief, I do remember a time where Chief Padilla came and said he wanted the vehicles to be consistent throughout the area. So that he wanted us to look the same as state police as well as sheriffs, which are both black and white. So I'm curious as to why we stayed with black. It sounds like it was a cost thing. I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do, but personally, I think I agree with Councilor Lindell on that. So, but we'll leave it at that for now. Any other questions or comments from the committee? What are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval by Councilor Viejo Coppler, second by Councilor Beta. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Passola.
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Romana Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Joanne Vijo Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Signe Lindell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We're on to item G, which is a request for approval of a bar to the Public Utilities Wastewater Division to cover negative balance of professional contracts. Councilor Lindell, you pull this, and Mike Dozier's on to answer questions.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just pulling up the yeah, I was a little confused on how we get to a, how do we end up at a negative balance on this?
Mr. Chair, Council Lindell, the negative balance was mainly because the original analysis was to be completed last year, but through the contract, it carries over into this year. With changes here at the plant, COVID, problems with construction being held up through that, through those issues also, it moved into the new budget. The new budget then wasn't during our budget, we didn't add the 70 to it. So it turned our new budget into a negative. It should have been all completed the year before, but everything got held up and it didn't.
Oh, okay, I just wasn't clear on how we would end up with the negative balance. I'll make a motion to approve, Chair.
Second.
Motion for approval by Councilor Lindell, second by Councilor Viejo Coppler. Any further discussion? I do have a question, Mike, just real quick. Did we forget to request the carryover of the 70,000, or was it denied when you tried to do it?
It was not, originally we thought it would be completed by the end of the fiscal year, and it wasn't. When we started going through to get it approved for the budget after the fact, after June, it was missed that we did not see it. It should have been carried over during that budget process.
All right, so just a simple oversight.
Yes.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? See none. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Roman Abeta,
Yes.
Counselor Joanne Viho Coppler,
Yes,
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Signe Lindell.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Thank you. On item 9, any matters from staff? Mr. Jones?
No matters from staff and public utilities, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Sure, Ms. Wheeler?
Hello, Chairman. I see, I was just going to mention that today would be John Romero's last meeting, but I'm not sure he's still with us. He was on the panel a little bit ago. But it just, it's a sad day that it'll be that John's leaving us, and I think we've all expressed our gratitude for his extraordinary contribution to the city. I'd just like to acknowledge that again. And we'll be working on backup plans to fill in for the vacancies in that division so that we can continue to provide services to the constituents and to the governing body.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Any matters from the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Counselor Viho Coppler?
Even though John isn't here, thank you, Regina, for expressing that. And I just want to congratulate him on his new job. And we spent some time talking on the phone, but I think it's a sad time for City of Santa Fe to lose such a qualified person. But as I told him, you don't mess with happy. So who's heard those words before? Sometimes if you mess with happy, it doesn't work out. But he's has to do what makes him happy and feel good about himself and his health and his everything. So it's always nice. You think of the times and the good that the person did while they were here with the city, and I think we're all better for having him worked here. And so he was a great public works director interim and a great engineer, and he did a stellar job. And now the DOT is going to get to have that expertise, and we can sit by on the sidelines and watch him move and shake over there. So thank you. And Regina, if you could pass that on to John. I don't know if you're having a party for him. I doubt it, because we can't even have parties. So give him my best, and we'll see him around the streets and the highways, I suppose. I don't know. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, welcome back, Ms. Wheeler. Nice to see you, and I'm sure you'll be part of our meetings from now on, so welcome back.
Thank you, Chairman.
I have no other items. With that, our next meeting is Tuesday, October 13th. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
thank you, Chair.